The boring mystery for sleep, the chilly disappearance of Greenland's Viking settlers. Section 1. You tighten the last rope and squint westward, salt burning your eyes. The ship creaks beneath you, knitted from oak, soaked in tar, smelling of iron and seaweed. Eric the Red stands a few feet away, his hair wind-lashed and wild, his banishment from Iceland still fresh in everyone's mind. You're not exactly sure why you followed him, only that the promise of land, freedom, and a future whispered louder than fear. The wind is cold, even now in midsummer, but steady. You watch as the coastline of Iceland shrinks behind you, the green giving way to an endless stretch of grey sea. It's not your first voyage, but it feels the most uncertain. Word has spread of a place Eric calls Greenland, a name deliberately chosen to sound welcoming, though none of you knows if the name lies. The days blur. You pass icebergs, massive glowing blue monoliths. They drift slowly, groaning like ancient beasts. Nights are harder, the cold bites deeper. You huddle with others beneath firs, lulled to sleep by the slap of waves and occasional crack of oar against hull. There is no singing, no laughter on this voyage, just the low mutter of prayers and the scratch of maps redrawn in the dark. One morning, fog curls around the ship like wool, thick and wet. Then land. Jagged grey cliffs loom suddenly from the mist, barren and sharp. It's not welcoming, but it's land. Eric shouts to row. You reach the shore together. Your boots sink into rocky mud, hands numb from gripping the boat's rim. The air smells of iron and lichen. No trees, no birdsong, only wind and sea. But beneath the stone, Eric claims, there is potential. Fertile fjords, hidden pasture, protected coves. You're not sure, but you help unload the tools. The ship is drawn up. No one says it aloud, but you all feel it. This place may not let you leave. A few days in, you begin to understand the rhythm of the land. The soil is thin, but you carve space for sod houses, cutting grass in thick rolls. You light fires from driftwood and whalebone. You boil seal fat for oil. When the first calf is born, you all gather to watch, faces stunned that life can begin here. At night, around a low fire, someone finally speaks of Iceland. Not fondly, but factually, as though it belongs to a different lifetime. You trace shapes in the soot of your sleeve, listening to the stories others tell of raids, of harsh judgments, of gods now too far away to hear. There are no shrines here. Not yet. Seals are plentiful. Their eyes watch you from the shore, dark and unblinking. Some say the spirits of those lost at sea live in them. You do not argue. You learn to skin and salt them quickly, trading your squeamishness for survival. When the tide is low, you scour the beach for driftwood, each piece more valuable than silver. The sky is massive, so wide you sometimes feel you'll fall upward into it. The silence grows on you, like moss on a stone. And when the first snow falls, light, slow, unhurried, you feel Greenland claiming you. Not violently, just inevitably, like a weightless frost settling into your breath. Eric builds his hall on a slope above the fjord. It is large, warm, defiant. You help raise the beams, carve dragon motifs in the doorframe, even as you wonder who will come to see them. He names the place Brattahlid, the steep slope. It suits the land. It suits you all. Seasons pass. Boats arrive from Iceland, smaller groups, more families. They bring seeds, tools, sheep, even a priest. They bring news of kings and skalds and lore things. But slowly those stories fade behind fog and time. Your world becomes narrower, but deeper. You begin to dream of this place in the old language, not as exile, as home. Section 2. The frost clings to your sleeves as you step from the doorway. The fjord lies still, glassy in the morning light. Snow covers the rooftops like thick wool, softening the hard lines of turf and stone. In this silence, broken only by the distant crack of ice shifting along the shoreline, you feel the pulse of a new life, remote but steady. It's been several seasons since you landed, and Brattahlid no longer feels temporary. Smoke rises from the longhouse chimneys. Goats bleat behind woven fences. Children chase each other, red-faced and laughing, while women stretch leather and spin wool beside the warmth of outdoor fires. It's not Iceland, and it's certainly not Norway. It's something in between, both harsher and quieter. You've helped build homes now, not just your own, sod piled thick, stone laid with care. You've learned to dig drainage ditches, to pack snow around walls for insulation, to bury meat deep where the frost keeps it long into spring. Survival here is not improvisation, it's repetition. Habits hardened into rhythm, the fjords surround you like walls. Narrow valleys, steep cliffs, sloping pastures. The sea still dictates everything. When you fish, when you dry meat, when you gather driftwood, the tides tell you when to sleep and when to rise. But the sea is not always kind. Some days it retreats completely, leaving the boats beached and the shore glistening with kelp. Other days it throws itself into the wind, smashing spray against the walls and stealing traps you thought were secure. Still, you endure. You do more than endure. You grow. A neighbor births twins, and the whole settlement gathers for the naming. You bring barley bread and whale oil candles. Songs are sung, old tales recited, half-remembered sagas of warriors and sea kings whose names mean little here, but still warm the heart like mead. The priest stands quietly in the corner, waiting his turn. The newcomers have brought their crosses, stone ones, tall and simple, planted beside the doorways. You watch them with curiosity, not contempt. The old gods didn't follow you here, not fully. You haven't dreamed of Odin in a long while, but the thunder still speaks in the mountains, and when the wind howls across the ridges, you sometimes whisper Freya's name without thinking. Trading runs begin, first with Iceland, then farther. Ships come bearing iron tools, timber, salt. In return you offer hides, ivory, walrus tusks. One man even sends a polished narwhal horn back to Norway, where it's passed off as a unicorn's horn to some distant king. You hear of this and laugh until your ribs ache. Spring is a welcome agony. The meltwater soaks everything, mud sucks at your boots, but then green returns. Moss brightens, birds appear again, eggs are found in the cracks of stone, and once, deep in a ravine, you glimpse something that looks almost like a tree. Your life becomes a circle. Fish, plant, herd, hunt, repair. The long winters darken the edges of memory, and you lose track of years. But that's fine. No one here counts time the way they used to. You mark it by births, by ships arriving, by who has grown tall and who has grown quiet. One night, under a rare clear sky, you see the northern lights. They move like spirits dancing slowly, trailing robes of green and violet. You lie on your back beside a low fire, not speaking. No one does. You feel something inside you shift, not fear, not awe. Just a quiet understanding. The world is wider than your needs, and colder than your hopes, and beautiful without trying. The settlement to the east, hundreds of miles along the coast, is growing too. You've never been, but you know the names of those who went. A bishop has taken root there. The rumor is he's building a cathedral. You imagine stone rising from snow, stained glass glinting in polar twilight, candles flickering beside sealskins. One day, you help carry a boy to that settlement. He's sick, some wasting illness no one can name. You bundle him with furs, load him into a sled, and follow the coastline by boat and hoof. It takes many days. You pass ruins along the way, old shelters abandoned, a burial mound marked with a sunstone. At the eastern fjord, the buildings are grander, more numerous. But the silence is thicker. There's a solemnity there, a kind of deep hush that even the wind respects. You leave the boy and return with stories of stone floors and bells that ring even in fog. The sea is your road now, your tether to others. Returning home, the cold greets you like an old friend. The sheep crowd together against the wind. The fish hang drying in the smokehouse. The longhouse smells of sweat and peat and boiling bone. You crawl into your furs, trace the familiar knotwork on the beams above your head, and listen to your breath slow. Here, on this frozen edge of the known world, you are not lost. You are settled. Section 3. The sun hangs low in the sky, even at midday, casting a muted golden light that never quite warms your skin. You wake to the sound of crackling fat and the scrape of a spoon against a carved wooden bowl. The fire is already lit. Someone has stirred the embers to life again before dawn. You pull your fur close and rise slowly, knees stiff from the night's cold. Another day begins. Outside, the rhythm of life hums softly through the settlement. A woman hauls water from the stream, ice cracking under her bucket. Children chase a shaggy dog, their laughter muffled by the thick air. A man bends over a fish rack, rearranging the dried cod by weight and color. This is not a place of loud proclamations or sudden changes. It is a place of loops. You've come to understand that this land rewards patience. You feed the goats first. Their bleating greets you like clockwork. Their breath fogs in the morning chill. You run your hand along their coarse coats, murmuring quietly as you distribute the feed. These small rituals tether you to the seasons, to the land, to the others around you. You have found a kind of peace here, deliberate, repetitive, unhurried. The longhouse feels more lived in each year. The walls are decorated now, carved patterns, bits of cloth dyed with lichen and bloodroot, small bundles of bone and stone tied with sinew and placed near windows. Not for magic exactly, for memory, to remind you of who you are, where you've been, and that you are still here. Midday comes slowly, the light never fully climbs. You spend part of it weaving a new net with your neighbor. Your fingers work in silence, side by side, the twine pulling tight between you. You don't talk often anymore, not because there's nothing to say, but because everything that needs saying has already been lived. Occasionally, someone brings news. A birth upriver, a wolf spotted near the sheep pens, a new carving of Christ erected near the fjord's edge. You listen, nod, return to your tasks. Nothing is urgent. Even illness takes its time here. Once a week, you walk to the fjord's mouth to fish. The ice is thin this time of year. You carve a hole, bait your line, and sit. You watch the mountains mirrored in the water's surface, perfectly still until a gull disturbs it. Some days, you catch nothing. Other days, a single fat char feels like a miracle. You never rush. Evening brings the warmest moments. The longhouse fills with the low sound of conversation, wool brushing against skin, the smell of stew. You share a simple meal, boiled seal meat, bits of onion preserved from last fall, flatbread warmed on a stone. You don't feast often, but you never go hungry. This balance has taken years to master. After supper, stories begin. Not new ones, no one here invents. The tales are old, passed down in snatches and song. You close your eyes and listen as someone tells of Leif Erikson's voyage west, of ghosts in the snow, of dreams dreamt by a woman who once slept through an entire winter. The words are not urgent. They float through the smoke like drifting feathers. You lie down as the fire dims. Outside, the wind has picked up, brushing gently against the thick sod walls. You feel it in your bones now, the weather, the cold, the subtle shifts in the sea. There are no clocks here, but you know time as well as any king in a tower. Tomorrow you'll mend a roof, or build a sled, or walk to the ridge and watch the clouds roll over the hills. You've come to accept that the days are not meant to be different. They are meant to be steady, calm, reliable. There is beauty in that. A quiet life is still a full one. Before sleep takes you, you listen to the house settle. A creak of timber, a cough from across the room, a faint breath from someone dreaming nearby. And then, slowly, you drift off too, as the cold presses gently against the outside world, and the fire inside your chest holds just enough warmth to carry you through the night. Section 4. The chapel bell tolls, a dull, rounded sound that barely travels through the thick air. You pause your work, leaning on your shovel, and listen. It doesn't call you in haste. It never has. Its tone is more of a reminder than a command, an echo across the fjord that speaks of something bigger, older, quieter than law. You walk toward the small stone church with your hands tucked into your sleeves. The wind is picking up. It always does this time of year. The path is uneven, traced by years of footfalls, lined with half-buried bones of driftwood and soft tufts of moss. The door creaks when you push it open, and the warmth inside is modest, but welcome. The chapel is simple, low walls, a timber roof darkened with age, a cross hanging above the altar, carved from Greenland pine. You slide onto a bench without a word. The priest nods. He's one of the few who still wears his Icelandic wool robes, threadbare but clean. The others trickle in slowly. Neighbors, cousins, two children who whisper until their mother hushes them. Mass is short, the prayers are familiar, spoken in Old Norse but tinged with a rhythm now unique to Greenland. The smell of tallow candles mixes with cold stone and faint traces of seal oil. You find comfort in the repetition, even if you don't quite believe everything the priest says. The rituals hold you together, same as the sod walls and rope lines. You sing, though your voice is rough, and when you leave, the bell rings again. One soft chime, carried off by wind. Outside, a trader waits at the edge of the path. He's just arrived, his boat still dripping from the sea. His wares are modest this time. Iron nails, a bit of wine, cloth dyed blue, deep and dark, the colour of a raven's wing. You offer him walrus ivory in return. He examines it, nods, and hands you a small pouch of salt as a gift. He stays the night in the longhouse, trading stories over bowls of soup, his voice full of laughter and heat. He tells you that Iceland is thriving, that the church grows richer, that a king far away has declared something called a Christian empire. You smile politely and say little. That world no longer feels like yours. His voice fades when he speaks of Norway, of tithes and war and papal decrees. Those stories are heavy, sharp-edged, not built for Greenland's slow quiet. The next day he leaves. The sea is calm. You help push his boat off the shore, the hull scraping over rocks, and wave as he disappears into the mist. You'll see another like him in a few months. Maybe. The visits are less predictable than they used to be. Some say storms are stronger now. Others whisper of something else, an unease in the water, in the ice. You turn your thoughts back to your own work. The chapel needs repairs. One of the walls is bowing slightly, and the wooden beam above the door has split. You gather stone from the hill and sand from the river's edge. You mix mortar with careful hands. You know how to build now, better than when you arrived. In the evenings, you return to the chapel just to sit. Not for prayer, for silence. You like the way the wind hums against the walls, how the flame from the altar candle throws shadows along the back pew. Sometimes you trace the carvings in the stone. Latin letters, old runes, fish symbols, stars. No one remembers who etched them all. They just remain. The church stands for more than faith. It is shelter, structure, a place to gather when grief comes, when children are born, when someone does not return from a hunt. It is where you brought your brother after the fever took him, where his wife lit a candle that still sits by the eastern window, wick blackened but never removed. And yet, even with the church, the old beliefs remain. Quietly, beneath the surface, you still hang a horseshoe above your door, you still whisper a charm before setting out on the sea. The priest knows. He says nothing. Everyone here walks between two worlds, one spoken aloud and one held close to the chest. At the edge of the fjord, another chapel is being built, smaller, humbler. You've heard they mean to use whalebone for the beams. You wonder how long it will last, how many winters it can take. You consider offering help, then decide against it. There's enough to do here. Back at your longhouse, a new candle flickers on your table. The flame dances in a draught, making the walls seem to shift. You sit beside it, hands open, and feel the weight of the day leave your shoulders. Not in any dramatic way, just gently. Like how snow melts when you aren't watching. The bell does not ring again that day. It doesn't need to. The memory of its chime stays in your ear, soft and round, blending into the rhythm of your breathing. Section 5. The first time you notice their absence, it's subtle, a delay. The ship from Iceland, expected with spring's melt, does not arrive. No panic, no alarm. Storms happen, timetables slip. But it lingers in your mind like a cough that won't clear. You carry on. The goats need tending. The new sheepdog pup is chewing everything in sight. A barrel of dried fish split during thaw, and you have to repack it, grumbling the whole time. Still, you glance at the sea more often, looking for sails where there are none. Summer comes. A second ship is due. Trade routes are thin threads here, each one vital. You depend on the iron, on the flour, the combs and needles, the soft wool that still carries the scent of other lands. But the second ship doesn't come either, nor the third. The priest mutters about storms, about a difficult year in Iceland. He does not look at you as he says it. He begins writing more letters, scrolls rolled tightly, sealed in wax, given to anyone heading east. You help him once, holding the parchment steady as he writes in a cramped, careful hand. You cannot read it, but you recognize the urgency. In the meantime, things grow quieter. The foreign wine runs out. You switch back to fermented berries, sour but passable. The iron tools dull faster. Repairs take longer. A fishhook breaks, and you try to forge a new one with scrap. Your hands clumsy with cold and inexperience. It holds, barely. The neighbors share more. Salt, yarn, stories. A young woman carves beads from bone and trades them for food. A boy sharpens blades with river stones and becomes quietly valuable. You notice new patterns emerging, ones shaped by need, not custom. You find yourself listening harder when someone mentions news from beyond the fjords. One man claims he saw a strange boat on the southern coast, broad, low, unfamiliar. Another says the bishop in the eastern settlement has sent word asking for help. No one knows if it's true. The messages are too slow now, the stories filtered through too many mouths. Still, some travelers do come. A thin, sun-darkened man from Iceland arrives on a battered boat, carrying barely anything but rumors. He speaks of plague in Europe, of a colder sea, of kings raising taxes so high that fewer ships risk the crossing. You offer him broth and bread and listen late into the night. He sleeps with one hand wrapped around his pack. When he leaves, you walk to the chapel and sit in the back, watching the candlelight flicker. You feel the edges of your world tightening, not shrinking, not yet, but coiling, turning inward. The sea that once felt like a road now feels like a gate that swings less freely with each tide. The harvest that year is thin. The goats birth fewer kids. The seals are harder to find. You start boiling bones longer, pulling every last bit of grease. The fire burns lower. The light seems dimmer, though you know it's only your eyes adjusting to the gloom. And yet, life continues. A baby is born in the western homestead, red-faced and loud. The entire settlement brings gifts, fish, cloth, a carved rattle. You hold the child for a moment, surprised by how small and alive it feels in your hands. Hope clings to these moments like snow to spruce needles. Then, in autumn, a ship appears. It is not from Iceland. Its sail is darker, its shape unfamiliar. You watch it from a ridge, heart slow but steady. It moves silently along the coast, not docking, not signaling. It passes like a shadow, and you are left standing in the wind, uncertain whether you saw it at all. The villagers whisper again. Skraelings, pirates, traders from another land. No one knows. You wonder, not for the first time, how far you truly are from the rest of the world. You mend your nets, you sharpen your bone tools, you patch the turf roof before the snow returns. These tasks ground you, keep your hands busy even as your thoughts stretch like smoke into the sky. By winter, the stories have slowed. No ships, no letters. The last bit of news came weeks ago, traded by a shepherd traveling between valleys. The bishop's farm stands quiet, its fields unplowed. No smoke from the chimney. You think of the man from Iceland, of the way his voice broke slightly when he spoke of home. You wonder if this is how a candle goes out, not in wind, not in rain, but simply because no one remembers to tend the flame. You sit by your own fire that night, long after the others sleep. The embers glow orange and deep. You hold a piece of driftwood in your hand, tracing its knots with your thumb. The sea took it once and returned it, reshaped, softened, changed. You wonder if you are the same. Section 6. The scent of roasted lamb drifts up from the longhouse hearth, heavy with herbs and smoke. You pause, knife in hand, adjusting your grip on the bundle of dried heather you're cutting. Outside, the cold creeps in again, just at the edges, hinting that the first true snow isn't far off. But inside, tonight, the hall is full of warmth, voices and something rarer still, laughter. Preparations began days ago. Word traveled slowly. A wedding. The daughter of a chieftain from a distant farm is marrying the son of a herdsman from the outer valley. You barely know them, but it doesn't matter. A wedding is a reason to gather, and in these times, such reasons are few. The benches are polished, the tables wiped with birch sap and seawater. Carved drinking horns are pulled from high shelves and inspected for cracks. You help hang old tapestries, slightly faded, stitched with stories of dragons, ships, and wolves. Stories no one has spoken aloud in months. As guests arrive, the quiet settlement stirs like a bear from hibernation. People from nearby fjords bring smoked fish, sheep's cheese wrapped in moss, seal fat candles, and even a cask of mead sealed in wax. You recognize faces you haven't seen in years. They've aged, just like you, but their eyes still carry the same tired brightness, like coals banked low. By sunset, the longhouse glows. Torches line the entryway. Someone sings as the bride steps forward, dressed in a pale blue cloak. Her hair is braided tight, silver rings clasped in each twist. The groom's tunic is too big, clearly borrowed, but he stands tall beside her, jaw clenched, eyes locked on the floor. You sit near the hearth as the ceremony begins. The priest speaks softly, his voice barely louder than the fire's pop and hiss. A few old prayers are spoken. A rune is drawn in ash on a plate and passed around. When the vows are finished, the bride and groom exchange carved rings of walrus ivory. You watch their fingers tremble slightly as they slide the smooth white bands into place. Then comes the feast. Bowls of lamb stew, platters of dried fish draped in herbs, flatbread still warm. You eat until your stomach aches. Someone pours you a horn of mead, and it tastes like smoke and sweetness, like the memory of summer. You hear someone tell a story, loudly a bit slurred, about a reindeer that chased a boy into a river. The hall erupts in laughter, and for a moment it feels like the old days. Like nothing has changed, but outside the wind picks up. Later, dancing begins. Not wild, no one has the strength for that anymore, but swaying, humming, soft steps on the earthen floor. You tap your foot, watching as the bride and groom circle the fire slowly, not entirely in rhythm, but close enough. The shadows on the walls stretch and shrink as the flames flicker. One old woman sings a lullaby from Norway, her voice quivering like a sail in heavy wind. You don't know the words, but the melody lingers in your chest like a heartbeat. Someone leans against your shoulder. You don't look to see who. You just sit there, still and breathing. When the food is gone and the fire burns low, people begin to leave in small, shuffling groups. The cold hits immediately as the door opens, sharp, dry, a reminder. You help clean up in silence. The leftover stew is set in sealed pots, the bones gathered for later use. Nothing is wasted. You step outside. The sky is clouded over, but you can sense the snow behind it. The air smells of iron and old earth. You walk slowly back to your own home, the silence pressing close around you again. The next morning, you return to the longhouse to check on the fire. The place is empty. Half-melted candles sit in pools of wax. Bits of bread are crushed into the floor. A dropped ribbon lies beside the hearth, pink and faded. You pick it up and slip it into your coat pocket. That was the last wedding. Years later, someone will mention it in passing. How the mead tasted, how bright the fire burned, how the stew was too salty but no one complained. No one remembers what song played last. No one remembers who cleaned the dishes, but everyone remembers it happened. After that, the visitors stop. The ships stop. Even the letters slow and then vanish. You continue to tend your goats, to mend the turf roof, to gather kelp. But the days begin to stretch, like fabric pulled too thin. Every moment is longer now, every silence deeper. And when someone falls ill, there is no priest to bless them, no healer to send for, no other farm with more supplies. You do what you can. A poultice, a boiled broth, a prayer whispered to no one in particular. The bride and groom move to a nearby valley. You hear rumors years later that their house burned, that she was seen walking alone by the coast, her blue cloak now threadbare and grey, that he went hunting and never returned. You light a candle for them once, just one. It burns quickly. Section 7, the first time you see them, it's from the ridge above the fjord. Dots in the snow, moving slowly, deliberately. Not ships, not animals. Figures, on foot. At least a dozen, maybe more. You crouch behind a boulder, heart suddenly loud in your ears. They are not Norse. You've heard of them before. The Skraelings. A word passed down with furrowed brows and stories told in low voices near the fire. A word that once meant little more than the others. Now it has weight, uncertainty, curiosity. You watch them from a distance, small, broad figures wrapped in furs. They carry long spears, bows, bone-handled tools. They move with purpose, but without hurry, passing along the edge of the frozen coast. They do not come close, they do not wave. But you feel their eyes on you all the same. You return to the settlement and tell the others. Some grow tense, others simply nod. No one is surprised. It's not the first time someone has seen them. A trader once told of a group far to the west, near a place he called Markland. Another spoke of trading red cloth for fish, but there were also darker tales, disappearances, ambushes, vanished boats. Weeks pass, then they come closer. One morning, footprints are found near the stream, small, narrow, light. Not yours, not any of your kin's. The priest suggests caution. A hunter sharpens his spear, more from habit than anger. But no one panics. You've learned that fear in Greenland is wasted energy. You simply adjust. You keep watch more often now. You carry your knife when you fetch water. You walk in pairs when tending the goats, but part of you wonders, what do they see when they look at you? Strange stone houses, people wrapped in stitched wool instead of fur, fires burning day and night. You imagine their conversations. Who are these pale, slow-moving people who build walls instead of walking? One afternoon, a small group approaches, 4 of them, no weapons drawn. Their leader raises a hand. You raise yours in return. The distance closes slowly. They stop a dozen paces away. You can smell them, wood smoke, fish oil, something earthy and sharp like bark. No one speaks. You don't share a language, but you offer a small carved seal, smoothed from driftwood. You extend it gently, palm open. The leader looks at it for a long moment, then nods, accepting the gift. In return, they leave a bundle, dried meat wrapped in skin, and a bit of carved bone jewelry, delicate and precise. It's an exchange, not a treaty. But it means something. It means you're not entirely alone here. After that, they vanish for a while. You still see tracks, still hear the occasional faint sound, laughter perhaps, or something like it, echoing faintly across the ice. But there are no more meetings, no more gifts. Then one spring things change. A goat is found dead, not wounded, not sick, just gone cold in the night, throat cleanly slit. Another disappears days later without a trace. You find its tether cut, the ground around it trampled with strange prints. The priest insists on peace. The hunters argue. You stay silent, unsure. The tracks are confusing. Maybe it wasn't them. Maybe wolves. Maybe a thief from a rival farm. The truth feels less solid these days, like ice melting from beneath your feet. Eventually, someone decides to act. A group of young men sets out at dawn, following the trail west along the ridge. You don't go with them. You help repair a roof instead, trying not to watch the horizon. When the men return 2 days later, their faces are hard. They say nothing. But one of them carries a bow you've never seen before, strung with sinew and wrapped in red cloth. You know without asking that something broke. The visits stop entirely. No more footprints, no more gifts. But the silence feels heavier, not peaceful, suspended, as if the land itself is holding its breath. Later you return to the ridge. You scan the coastline, looking for any sign. A trail, a shape, a glint of bone or fur. There's nothing, just ice and stone and sea. You find the old carved bone necklace tucked in your belongings. You run your fingers over the grooves, tracing the delicate shapes. You don't know what they mean, but you wish you did. At night you dream of them, not in fear, in fragments. A figure crouched near a fire, a bow drawn slowly, a pair of eyes watching from behind snow-covered brush. You wake up feeling neither frightened nor comforted, just distant. Your world is shrinking again, and you begin to wonder, not for the first time, if maybe you are the stranger here. Section 8. The frost doesn't leave anymore. Not really. Even at midsummer you find thin crystals lacing the edges of the water barrel each morning. The air has a sharpness that never softens. You remember warmer years, bare feet on grass, the thick hum of insects. But now every season feels like a different shade of cold. The sheep's wool grows longer, thicker. The goats huddle closer. You cut more peat for the fires, layer the sod on the roof until the windows disappear beneath it. Still, the cold creeps in through the smallest gaps. It settles in the joints, stiffens your fingers, bites through every seam in your coat. Something has shifted. It's not just the temperature. It's the sky, the wind, the feeling in the marrow of your bones. You've lived long enough in Greenland to know the land's rhythms. But this feels like a discordant note. Low, constant, impossible to ignore. The birds arrive late. The grass grows thin. The sea ice lingers longer than it should. Fishing becomes harder. The usual coves are barren. You try farther out, deeper, riskier. One boat returns damaged. Another does not return at all. You listen to the sea at night, hear it groaning under the weight of the shifting currents, like something vast and tired beneath the waves. You ration more carefully now. Seal fat is no longer an everyday staple, but a precious reserve. You stretch your food stores with boiled bones, dried moss, bits of sour bread softened with snow. You chew slowly, savoring each bite, not for the taste, but for the memory of meals that once filled you without thought. The livestock grow thinner despite your efforts. You see ribs where you used to see wool. A young calf doesn't survive its first week. You bury it beneath a cairn of ice and stone. The earth is too hard to dig properly. You do what you can, and still life presses forward. You mend your tools with sinew and driftwood. The iron is nearly gone, too precious to use carelessly. You save it for nails, hinges, the one axe blade you sharpen obsessively, like it's a relic from a better world. People gather more often now, not to celebrate, but simply to stay warm. The longhouse becomes a hive of quiet motion, spinning, weaving, carving, boiling. No one speaks of fear. They just move slower, breathe deeper, say less. The silence becomes companionable, necessary. Sometimes, when the cold is too sharp for sleep, you walk the edges of the village. The snow crunches like salt under your boots. The stars above seem closer than they used to be, brittle and bright. You pause near the chapel. The bell hasn't rung in months. The rope froze and snapped. You haven't replaced it. One morning, a boy finds a seal near the inlet. Dead, but fresh. Its eyes wide open, its flippers still tense. You thank whatever power still listens and drag it back with help. You share the meat, render the fat, preserve what you can. The bones you keep for tools and charms. The skin you stretch on a rack, humming an old Icelandic lullaby as you work. The days blur. Light and dark bleed into each other in the long twilight of winter. Sometimes you wake unsure if it's morning or night. You mark time by tasks, the completion of a fishing net, the butchering of a goat, the return of the man from the next valley with news that he has nothing to report. You dream more now, strange dreams. Ice that speaks, fire that doesn't burn, a woman in a blue cloak walking into the sea without sinking. You tell no one. Others dream too, you suspect, but no one speaks of them. There are more pressing things to tend to. The ground no longer yields anything useful. The last harvest was barely enough to store. You consider planting again, but the soil is hard, unforgiving. You run your fingers through it, feel its reluctance. You leave it be. One evening, a heavy snow begins without warning, thick, fast, smothering. It buries your path before you can walk it. You dig your way to the goat pen, find them huddled together, silent and unmoving. One is already gone, its body frozen so solid you can barely lift it. You return to the longhouse and sit in silence by the fire. The others are there too. No one speaks. A woman stirs a pot of broth with a cracked wooden spoon. A child sleeps curled beside a dog. You stare into the flames and feel your breath slow. There is no despair here, only stillness. Later that night, you step outside once more. The snow has stopped. The stars return. You look toward the sea, where the ice now forms early and refuses to break. Somewhere beyond that frozen edge is the world you left behind. softer, louder, warmer. But here, in this brittle silence, you feel the weight of something ancient and unmoving. You exhale, and the fog of your breath curls upward like smoke from a dying candle. Section 9. The wind slices across your face like a knife as you set out at dawn. The path eastward is barely visible now, obscured by snowdrifts and months of neglect. You carry only what you need: dried meat, a seal-fat lantern, your worn knife, and a bundle of spare wool. The rest is too heavy for a journey whose destination may no longer exist. You're going to the eastern settlement. No one has been there in over a year. Not since the last messenger arrived with vague reports. A priest ill, a barn collapsed, the bishop's farm unusually quiet. Then the messages stopped entirely. Some say the farm is abandoned, others say it still stands, but with no one left inside it. You volunteered to find out. You do not go alone. Two others walk beside you, wrapped tightly in cloaks stitched from wolf and bear. You say little. The cold steals your breath and makes words costly. But your steps fall in rhythm, and that is comfort enough. The journey begins with sharp silence. The landscape stretches flat and white, broken only by the occasional frozen stream or jagged outcrop of stone. You pass familiar markers: an old trail post, a half-buried sled, the remains of a fishing shack burned and hollow. Each one reminds you of how much time has passed since these roots were alive. The first night, you dig a shelter into the snow. The three of you huddle inside, backs pressed together, breath thick in the air. You chew dried fish in the dark, listening to the wind moan over the ridge above. It doesn't feel hostile, just vast, unconcerned. By the second day, you begin to smell the sea again, a faint saltiness carried by the breeze, sharp and metallic. You follow it, using the coastline as your guide. You see no tracks, no smoke, no signs of movement. Then a roof, just visible between two hills. Low, white, sagging under the weight of years. You approach slowly, cautiously. The main hall of the bishop's farm stands crooked. The turf is peeling away. The doors hang open, swinging gently in the wind. You call out. Nothing answers. Inside, the hearth is cold. A few old bones lie scattered near the fire pit. Animal, not human. A rusted cup sits on a table, still upright. Dust clings to every surface. The beds are made, the blankets folded neatly, as if whoever left intended to return. But no one ever did. You walk through the rest of the farm in silence. A storehouse, half collapsed. A shed, stripped of tools. A chapel, door hanging by one hinge. Inside the chapel, the altar is bare. The cross remains on the wall, but its base is cracked. A single candlestick lies on the floor, warped from heat. There's no smell of death, only emptiness. One of your companions lights a torch. The flickering flame casts long shadows across the walls. You search for anything: notes, signs of struggle, a trace of departure. But it's like the settlement simply exhaled and vanished. The snow outside has swallowed all footprints. The wind has erased every voice. You find a journal in a chest near the priest's quarters. The leather is stiff, the ink faded. Most of it is illegible. The few words you can make out speak of sickness, hunger, prayers unanswered. The last entry reads only, "They have stopped coming." You leave it where you found it. You sleep that night in the bishop's hall. It feels wrong, but necessary. You light a small fire and eat your last bit of seal meat. The silence in the building feels deeper than the one outside, denser, as if the walls themselves remember what you cannot. In the early morning, you wake to the sound of your name. You sit upright, heart racing. Your companions are asleep. The fire has gone out. You hear nothing else. No voice, no breath, just the pop of frost cracking the window frame. You do not sleep again. The journey back is harder. The wind is fiercer, the snow deeper. But your feet move without thought. The stillness of that empty farm weighs on you like an extra pack, every step echoing with questions that have no answers. When you return to your own village, no one asks what you saw. They look at your face and know. One of your companions goes straight to the chapel and lights a candle. The other begins to patch the roof of his house, saying nothing at all. You sit by your own hearth that night and stare at the flame. You think of the bed still made, the cup still standing, the chapel with no prayers left to hold, and you wonder if one day someone will walk through your house in silence, asking the same questions, feeling the same quiet dread. Not of death, but of absence. Section 10. The nights stretch longer now, curling like smoke through the spaces between your thoughts. Sleep comes, but it's not restful. You wake often, sometimes to silence, sometimes to faint noises you can't name. The wind, you tell yourself, always the wind. But there are dreams too, not fleeting images, not scraps of memory. These dreams are slow and wide, like the sea beneath ice. You dream of walking through your longhouse, but everything is wrong. The walls are taller, the hearth cold, and each room is empty. You call out and hear only echoes. Sometimes you dream of voices, low, distant. They murmur in the dark, their words too soft to understand, but impossible to ignore. You wake with those sounds still in your ears, like embers that won't die. Other nights, you hear laughter, or footsteps just outside the wall. You rise and check. Nothing, always nothing. You tell no one. Everyone is tired. Everyone dreams strange things now. The days are short and dull, the sky the same color for weeks at a time. Grey, dull blue, faded white, like the world has been leached of color. You try to stay busy, mending gear, checking traps, fixing the sled, but the work feels thinner, like the thread in your last piece of wool. You visit the chapel more often, not for prayer, but for silence. You sit in the back corner and stare at the candle, listening to it flicker. You try to count the cracks in the stone. The candlelight doesn't banish the cold anymore. It only gives it shape. One morning, a neighbor comes to your door. He looks pale, unshaven. He asks if you heard it too. Last night, the knock. Just one, then another. No footsteps, no voice. You say no, but your hands tighten on your belt as you speak. You invite him in, and neither of you says more about it. That night you sit awake long after the fire dims. You listen to the silence, taut and unnatural. And when you do sleep, the dream returns. This time, a room you've never seen before, filled with snow. A door swinging open, footprints that stop in the middle of the floor. Then nothing. In the following days, more people speak of strange things. A goat found outside its pen, frozen where it stood, legs stiff and eyes open. A bundle of dried fish gone missing, the storage room undisturbed. A child waking with a word on his lips that no one recognizes. Someone finds bones near the edge of the valley. Small, clean, placed in a circle. No one claims to have arranged them. They leave them where they lie. You begin to mark the days with scratches on a bit of wood. Not for time, for memory, to prove each day existed, to prove you were here. Then a voice. You're out near the old stream, breaking ice with a stick when you hear it. Clear, close. It says your name. You turn quickly. Nothing. The hills are still, the snow undisturbed. Your pulse is loud in your ears. You do not mention it when you return. But it happens again. Always your name. Always from behind. Always when you are alone. The priest says little these days. He has begun sleeping in the chapel, lighting candles at odd hours. Sometimes he sings softly in Latin, the words curling upward like smoke. Once you see him weeping quietly in the corner, his hands wrapped around the cross at his neck like he's holding a burning coal. One night the sky clears. The stars blaze above, bright and sharp like daggers. You stare upward, breath shallow, and feel something unfamiliar. The sense that you're being watched, not from the woods, not from the sea, but from above. The air itself feels thick, expectant. You lower your gaze and head inside. Later you dream again. You walk into the chapel, but the walls are gone. Only the altar remains, and above it a hole in the sky. Through it you see a cold, white emptiness. It's beautiful. It's unbearable. You wake gasping. The fire has gone out. Your hands are numb. In the days that follow, fewer people speak. Fewer leave their homes. You move slower, conserving strength. The voices still come, softer now, almost polite, as if asking permission. You do not grant it. Instead, you take each day for what it is: a fire to light, a wall to patch, a bowl to fill. You cling to the routine like driftwood in an ocean too wide to cross. When others speak of leaving, of heading south or west, or anywhere warmer, you nod. But you do not join them. There is nowhere else to go. This is your place, even if the ice speaks, even if the dreams deepen, even if the voices know your name. Section 11. The storm hits harder than expected. Sharp snow blown sideways, sky and earth blending into a single white blur. You wait it out in the longhouse, the walls groaning with each gust. Smoke curls back down the chimney, confused by the wind's direction. You stay near the fire, wrapped in furs, listening. After 3 days, it passes. The silence it leaves behind is total. You step outside to assess the damage. The goat pen is half buried. The sled has vanished beneath a snowdrift. The small lean-to you built near the storehouse has collapsed entirely. You note it. Make repairs where you can. You try not to dwell on how few tools you have left. Then, someone finds the wreck. You follow a neighbor to the coastline where a shape juts from the ice, twisted wood, torn sail, metal fittings dulled by frost. A ship, not one of yours. It's lodged against the rocks at a crooked angle, hull cracked, mast snapped clean in half. You approach cautiously. The sea has frozen around it, the ice thick and rippled like cooled wax. No signs of life, no bodies. You and your neighbor explore the deck. Ropes stiff as bone, the cargo hold partly crushed. You find remnants, a broken shield, iron nails, an empty crate labeled in Norse runes. Someone came a long way to end here. Inside the cabin, you find more. Worn boots, a kettle still holding the ghost of tea, a child's carved toy left on the bench. But no people, no sign of where they went. The snow covers everything like a burial shroud. You salvage what you can. The nails are prized. The planks can be used to patch the chapel roof. The sailcloth is cut into smaller pieces and shared. One woman claims the kettle. Another takes the toy, cleans it, and places it beside her son's bed. But the ship itself remains. Frozen in place, tilted like it's still turning. A silent monument to something unseen. You visit it more than once, not for supplies, but for something else. A connection, a reminder that others existed beyond your shrinking world, that somewhere, someone else was lost. As the weeks pass, more things wash up. Not ships, not people. Bits of broken wood, rope tangled in knots, shards of pottery. You begin to walk the shoreline every morning, scanning the ice for signs. Most days you find nothing. Some days you find more than you want. Once a skeleton, partially buried, half hidden beneath a slab of ice, a single boot still clinging to one foot. You dig it out slowly, carefully. There are no signs of violence, no wounds, just stillness. You carry it back to the chapel, wrap it in a wool cloak, and bury it near the altar. You do not know their name, so you give them one. Stein. It means stone. Something solid. Something that remains. Another day, you find a small chest. Locked, half-rotted. You pry it open and discover cloth, now moth-eaten and stiff. A metal brooch shaped like a bird, a comb made from bone, a piece of parchment so faded you cannot read it. You keep the brooch, hang it above your doorway. You stare at it sometimes before sleep. You've grown used to salvaging. When your axe breaks, you bind it with wire from the wreck. When your boots split, you patch them with leather from a drowned satchel. When the oil runs low, you melt the last of the rendered fat and share it out by spoonfuls. You've learned to do without. And when someone dies, you bury them quietly, with what dignity you can muster. There are no longer enough candles for every grave. Sometimes you light a piece of bark instead. Sometimes you just speak their name once and let the snow cover them. The wreck becomes a landmark, a gathering place. Children play on its frozen deck when the wind allows. Adults come to sit in silence. The ice does not melt. The ship does not move. It becomes a piece of your village. But it is not the only one. You begin to notice other things too. The bones of old shelters emerging from the snow, as if the land is returning memories you forgot. A stone ring you never noticed before, perfectly circular. A carved idol half buried in the frost, worn smooth by wind. You feel the past pressing against the edges of your world, not loudly, but insistently. One morning, you walk the entire bay. Alone, the sky is clear, the cold dry and sharp. You count the steps between landmarks. You note where the snow has thinned. You whisper to yourself as you go, names of people, places, stories, to remember, to anchor yourself. And as you pass the wreck one last time before returning, you pause. The mast, broken as it is, casts a shadow long and narrow across the ice. It points inland, toward your home, toward the last fire still burning. You do not move for a long time. When you finally turn away, you carry that image with you. That line, that direction, that connection. Whatever brought that ship to your shore is gone, but you are still here, still standing, still watching the sea. Section 12. The seal hunt begins before first light. You wake to the sound of movement. Quiet steps, boots on snow, the clink of tools being lifted from their hooks. No one speaks. The decision was made yesterday. Supplies are too low. The cold has gone on too long. You must try. You dress in layers, fur and wool, seal skin pulled tight over your shoulders. You check your spear. Shaft still solid, point still sharp. The haft has been wrapped with cord 3 times now, each layer a different winter. It holds barely. You and the others, 5 in all, gather near the edge of the fjord. The air bites at your cheeks. Frost wrings your breath. The ice groans beneath your feet as you step onto it, cautious but practiced. You've done this before. But not like this. Not this late in the year. Not with so much riding on the outcome. The sea lies frozen in every direction, smooth and endless like polished stone. Somewhere beneath, seals move like shadows. You follow old paths, marked with bones and driftwood. You know the pressure points, the safe channels, the hollow places where a wrong step might drop you into freezing black. You listen to the wind. It carries no birdsong, no voices, just the distant moan of shifting ice and the quiet creak of sleds pulled behind you. You press forward, breath by breath. Hours pass before you find the hole, a breathing spot, an opening in the ice no wider than your hand. Steam rises faintly from its surface, a good sign. You drop to your knees beside it, pressing your ear to the ice. You hear movement, faint, slow, life. The others fan out in a circle, setting up low snow walls to shield from the wind. You settle in. This part takes time. You wait. Minutes become hours. Your fingers cramp. Your joints stiffen. But you do not move. You watch the hole. You listen. The cold creeps up through your bones. You feel it in your jaw, your spine, your teeth. You clench and release your grip on the spear. Then a shadow. You don't breathe. The seal surfaces briefly, just a nose, a ripple, the faintest sign of breath. It vanishes again. But it's close. The next time it rises, you're ready. The spear strikes clean. The ice cracks slightly from the force. The seal thrashes, then stills. You and another pull it out together, struggling against its weight and the suction of the hole. The others cheer softly, briefly, not for sport, for survival. It's a big one. You gut it immediately, hands steady despite the cold. The warmth from its body steams into the air. You keep the meat, the fat, the skin, even the bones. Nothing is wasted. 2 more are taken that day. Not enough to restock the settlement for months, but enough to feed the fires, fill the stew pot, strengthen a few who've grown pale and slow. You strap the carcasses to the sled, tying them down with thick rope, and begin the long walk home. The sky is turning violet by the time the settlement comes into view. The smoke from the chimneys is thin. The light from the longhouse windows flickers like distant stars. You walk slowly, the sled dragging heavy behind you. When you arrive, people gather. Faces appear in doorways. Eyes widen at the sight of fresh meat. Someone begins to sing, a low hum, half melody, half breath. A baby begins to cry, and no one hushes it. You take the first piece to the chapel, an old habit, not a rule, just a gesture. You leave it wrapped in cloth on the altar. You do not pray. You do not speak. You stand there for a moment, breathing in the scent of stone and tallow. Then you leave. The rest is divided carefully, cut, salted, boiled, rendered. Every scrap finds a use. The children chew strips of blubber like candy. The elders take the liver first. You watch them eat, their eyes closed, silent with gratitude. That night, the longhouse is warmer. You sit near the fire and stretch your legs. Your muscles ache. Your shoulders are raw, but you feel full, not just from food, but from action, from motion, from purpose. The fire pops. Sparks rise like tiny ghosts. Someone retells an old hunting story, embellishing the size of a long-dead walrus. Laughter follows, soft, tired, but real. You join in. Your voice sounds strange to your own ears, like a drum long untouched. Later, you return to your own bed, curl into the furs, and feel warmth in your stomach. You think of the ice, the breath rising from the hole, the stillness before the strike. You sleep well that night, the first good sleep in weeks. Section 13. The chapel door doesn't resist when you push it open. It swings inward with a soft creak, dust billowing faintly into the cold morning light. You haven't been here in weeks, not since the last burial, not since the last candle burned out. Inside, the air is still. You pause, letting your eyes adjust. Pale light filters through a slit window, painting a line of gold across the stone floor. The altar remains. So does the wooden cross above it, though the grain has split along its base, and one arm has sagged slightly under the weight of time. The place is intact, but empty, not just of people, but of presence. You step carefully over a cracked flagstone and approach the front pew. A patch of dried lichen grows along its base. A rat's nest fills a corner where once a hymnal shelf stood. The candlestick is still there, but bent, and the last stub of wax has melted into a crusty puddle. You sit, bones aching, back resting against the cold wall. You let the silence wrap around you, not hostile, not warm. Just there. You remember when this chapel was filled, voices rising together, off-key but earnest, feet stomping snow off boots, shoulders brushing in the crowded space, the priest's voice filling the rafters, Latin words carried by breath and firelight, weddings, christenings, the feast of St. Olaf. You can still hear it, faintly, beneath the quiet. But no one comes here anymore. There is no priest. The font is dry, the records are gone. The bell no longer rings. You rise slowly and walk to the altar. The cloth has yellowed, its embroidery faded. The last scripture lies on a shelf behind, the pages swollen and warped from damp. You run your fingers across the spine, but don't open it. You don't need words anymore. You take a seat in the front pew facing the door. You close your eyes. The scent of old smoke, of stone, of time itself seems to cling to your clothes. You breathe deeply. It's not grief you feel, not loss. It's something simpler, an awareness that everything has its span, even faith, even fire, even a place meant to defy the cold. A sound breaks the stillness, footsteps faint. Outside, you rise, heart quiet, and step toward the door. You push it open slowly, the light momentarily blinding. No one is there, just the snow, unbroken, flat. You step outside anyway, walk to the edge of the knoll where the chapel stands. The village below is quiet, smoke curls from one chimney. A figure moves slowly between huts, carrying a bundle of sticks. You feel no urge to return inside. Instead, you walk around the chapel's perimeter. You count the stones in the foundation, noting where frost has pushed some outward. You see moss climbing up one side, tenacious and bright green against the white. Behind the chapel lies the graveyard, a small one, maybe 20 markers now. Some are carved, others are simple piles of stone. One has a smooth bone lashed to its center, etched with runes nearly worn away. You recognize most of them. One you helped build yourself. You kneel beside a small stone, smooth and grey, set low to the ground. You say nothing, not because you don't have words, but because there's no need. This silence is not empty. It's full of stories, of breath held in frozen lungs, of names whispered in dreams. You bow your head. A wind stirs the snow, brushing it gently from the stones, revealing more than you remembered, more than you knew were there. You stand slowly, every joint resisting, and return to the chapel one last time. Inside, you light a piece of dried moss in the old iron dish. It flares briefly, giving a soft, flickering glow. You leave it there and walk away. The door swings shut behind you. The chapel makes no sound. Section 14. The light has changed. It's hard to explain, but you notice it. A softness to the sky, even in midday. The sun barely rises now, just skirts the horizon. A pale orb that casts long, thin shadows and disappears before your body remembers warmth. Your days are slower. You wake when the cold inside the longhouse forces you to. You move through tasks methodically, tending the fire, checking the meat stores, brushing snow from the roof's edge. No one rushes. There's no reason to anymore. There are fewer of you now, and the land asks little besides quiet attention. No one has spoken of leaving in weeks. The last family to try never returned. They packed sleds and took the sea road west, hoping for better shelter or kinder weather. You watched them go, standing by the edge of the village with your hand raised until their figures blurred into the white. Now, even their tracks are gone. You haven't heard your own name spoken aloud in days. People pass one another with nods, with brief glances, with the occasional hand on a shoulder. Words take too much energy. Besides, everything that needs saying has already been said. Over and over, in other seasons, in other years. Even the animals seem quieter. The goats shuffle listlessly in their pen. The last dog, old and stiff-legged, rarely barks anymore. When you feed it, it looks at you not with hunger, but with understanding. One morning, you walk to the ridge. Alone, it takes longer than it used to. Your knees ache, and the wind has carved new shapes into the drifts. You reach the top by mid-morning and look out over the fjord. The sea is gone, buried beneath unbroken ice. From here, the horizon feels close, like the world has drawn itself inward. You see the chapel's roof, the sagging longhouses, the bent skeleton of the old boat dragged halfway to shore and never repaired. Nothing moves, and yet, nothing feels wrong. You sit on a rock and eat a piece of dried fish, chewing slowly, staring into the distance. The silence is absolute, and for the first time, you don't resist it. You let it fill you. You begin to wonder how it ends. Not with fire, not with war. There were no battles, no raiders, no plague. Just winter, just time, just the slow turning inward of a place too far from help, too proud to flee. You think about the stories that will be told, if any. Will someone come here one day, find the bones, the carved stones, a chapel with no bell? What will they think? That you vanished in a single day, that something terrible swept you away. You smile slightly, you know the truth. You faded, like mist in spring. You take out the old bone brooch from your pocket, the one found near the wreck. You turn it over in your hands. You rise slowly and walk to a small cairn on the ridge, a place where an old friend was buried last year. You place the brooch on top, not as an offering, just as a reminder. You return to the village as the sky darkens again. The longhouse glows faintly. Someone inside is tending the fire. You push open the door and step into warmth. No one looks up. They don't need to. You sit by the fire, you close your eyes, you listen. Outside, the wind picks up, but it's no longer a warning. It's a song you've heard all your life. You can hum along if you wish. You sleep deeply that night. No dreams, no sounds, just stillness. And when you wake, you don't. Not in the way you did before. Section 15. Years pass. Or maybe centuries. You wouldn't know. You're not watching anymore. But the land remembers. The snow softens. The ice melts. The wind carves the same paths across the hillsides it always has, whispering the same cold songs to no one in particular. Grass grows where hearths once burned. Moss wraps itself over old stones like a mother tucking in a sleeping child. The village still stands in its own way. The walls are lower, the roof's collapsed. The chapel's door hangs by a thread of weathered hinge. But the structure is there, the idea of it, the memory. Travelers sometimes stumble across it, scholars, hikers, those looking for something lost. They find tools, fragments of carved bone, bits of metal shaped by hands long gone. They pick up pieces of pottery and wonder whose lips last touched it. They read the stones, the runes faint but traceable. They run their fingers over the rough, quiet walls. They ask questions. Who lived here? Why did they leave? What happened? The archaeologists debate. Climate, trade routes, famine, isolation. Theories come and go, but the stones offer no answers. Only presence. The quiet weight of things left behind. The kind that doesn't demand attention, but waits to be noticed. Children of those who once left stories behind now walk among the ruins. They sketch the chapel. They map the wells. They find the remnants of a boat, half claimed by the earth, keel cracked but shape still holding. They see the bone brooch atop a cairn and wonder if it was a symbol, a token, or just a decoration misplaced. They never find your name, but they find your life in the small things. The way the hearth was built, the shape of a spoon, the pattern of wear on a stairstone. You're not remembered for any grand act. There was no final war, no vanishing, no flash of drama. Only the fading, only the quiet, only the truth that you were here, that you endured, that you kept the fire lit as long as the wood allowed. That's what remains. In the chapel, light still filters through the broken slit window. Some afternoons, the wind plays across the open roof and makes the rafters hum. No one sings there now, but the silence holds its own kind of music. The ruins do not weep. They wait. And in waiting, they honor everything that came before. The boring mystery is no mystery at all. Not when you know how things end. Not when you know how softly people can disappear. Not from failure, but from time. You are still here, in the stones, in the silence, in the line between sky and sea. And that is enough. The fire is low now. There is no more story to tell, not really. Only the rhythm of breath and the settling of dust. Let the last few images drift softly in your mind. A crooked chapel door, a distant sea frozen under a violet sky, the faint sound of seals breathing beneath the ice. You've walked a long way tonight, through snow and silence, through memory and history, through footsteps that faded before they were ever understood. But you've arrived at the end, not with a bang, not with a blaze, but with a gentle hush, like the final page of a book turned slowly, without urgency. Breathe in and let it out. Feel the cold pass behind you now. You are not on the ridge anymore, not by the fjord. You are warm, covered, still. The room you lie in now is your longhouse, your shelter, your place of quiet. There are no storms here, only stillness. Your body grows heavier, your thoughts stretch longer between each beat. There is nothing to chase, no mystery to solve, no voices asking questions in the dark. Only calm, only rest. Let the flickering candle in your mind dim, just a little. Let it burn low, let it smolder to a soft glow. You are not vanishing, you are drifting, not away but inward. Let the snow fall outside, let the chapel lean, let the ruins rest. You've done enough, you've lasted. You've watched the world turn beneath northern stars, and now you can close your eyes. There is no more to remember. Only peace, only breath, only sleep.